Okay, now we are recording. And Carol, I'll take it over to you so you can now share your screen.
Okay, are you going to share my MOKR first? Do you want to start with that?
So I have Carol's MOKR in the chat. If you guys want to open that up, it is a Word doc is the format that I have it under. So if you want to download that or get into that, that would be great. And then Carol, you'll go over your MOKR stuff after you do your presentation and let us know what you're working on, right? Or however you want to present, right?
Okay, yeah, I've got my MOKR in a slide deck, so we can just use that. But you can see the Word doc so you have a sense of what I'm doing in terms of trying to accomplish in this quarter. Okay, so let me get out of this and go back here and share my screen. All right, so I'm Carol Hayes. I reside in the Midwestern United States, in East Central Illinois, in the Upper Sangamon watershed. I happen to live along the Sangamon River. I have a company called the Strategic Collaboration Group. I'm the founder, I'm the president, I am the chief everything of this company at this point. This company's been in existence for nearly 20 years. I initially founded it as to be a collaborative design, the idea being that I would bring together partners to work on different kinds of projects around systems design issues and to make systems function better. This grew out of work that I began as an evaluator with the University of Illinois, evaluating a very large systems change initiative that came out of the federal government, of which my state was in the first cohort. And I quickly realized that what the feds were funding everybody to do, they had no idea how to do. And it largely revolved around the uptake of evidence-based practice. That was the innovation. And they couldn't figure out how to get who they were funding, which was mainly community-based organizations, to adopt things that work, the money that they were getting, and not do things that didn't work. And that was sort of an initiative that was really begun within the Clinton administration, but carried over into subsequent administrations. It has been a 20-year undertaking. It's still going on, the diffusion of this innovation across the country. And I happened to come into it at the very beginning and was lucky enough, privileged enough to be part of it for about 15 years. So I got to see this whole thing unfold in real time and be a supporter to it, really a capacity builder. I left the university after 2 years and went out to build capacity at all levels of the system that I was working with. So through that experience, and also subsequent to that, I was an executive director of a nonprofit, also trying to make change within the environmental world. And became acquainted with regenerative agriculture and bioregionalism and the benefits that that could bring to places and to communities. But what I recognized is that there is a big gap in capacity there as well. And these abilities of people to imagine something different are really limited, one, by their own thinking, but two, by their social entrepreneurship skills, their ability to bring people together, to mobilize them towards something new, and catalyze them, bring that to life. So I came up with the concept or the idea of Catalyst. Catalyst is essentially a social entrepreneurship support enterprise. The idea is that I would work with catalysts of all sizes and scales, some that are individuals, some that are nonprofits, some that are government entities, some that are associations of entities, some that are foundations themselves, to help them with the essential skills they need to innovate and make change at the scale that they're interested in making. Okay. Why am I doing this? My why is because I want to support and empower people to imagine and create a new story of a world in which we each pursue our fullest potential expression of ourselves, that we live in harmony and peace with each other and all beings and with our planet. So that's what I'm about. I recognize that that happens at a lot of different scales, and it often begins with inner transformation, which I am in the middle of myself. So in part, I am a guide for that journey because I'm on it myself. What's my wildly important goal? Well, so I've been a consultant for 20 years, right? I've had this business. My business is thriving. I actually have more business than I can do right now. So what I want to do is clarify what I do. What is my, and I love this sort of metaphor of being a guide. That is definitely who I am. But I want to clarify, and I want to get kind of focused, and so that the time that I put toward this is as beneficial as it can be, as supportive as it can be, and have as much impact as it can. So in this quarter, my MOKR, what I want to be able to do is first clarify my purpose as a guide and articulate that clearly. I want to clarify my hero and what their journey is. I work with lots of heroes and have worked with lots of heroes. There are some heroes I work with better than other heroes, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, why I believe that's true. So I want to clarify what that is. I want to clarify my brand. So you're going to laugh at me, but I have never had a website. I still don't have a website. I've never had a need for a website. I've never been without work, and I've always been considered, sort of at the top of my profession in the kind of work that I do. And I have a LinkedIn page, but honestly, it wasn't even up to date until earlier this year. So I've not promoted myself at all. So I want to do that. I want to create a brand. I want it to have meaning to me. I want it to represent who I am in a very authentic way. As I said, I've been through a very intensive personal transformation in about the past 18 months. And so who people thought I was 18 months ago, I'm probably not even the same person that they thought I was. So I really want to present myself in this new light, and have a coherent, branding and image that goes along with that. And then I want to present my brand on a beautiful, and the beautiful part's really important to me, an engaging website that encourages my heroes and sheroes to connect with me and imagine how they can create the future that they envision for themselves, for their community, for the place that they live, for nature and the rest of the planet. So who am I? Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Ray, for introducing me to Kolbe and its assessment model. That was super cool and very on target. And in fact, it's now become this, how I want to represent myself in the world. So it was really helpful. So here is what Kolbe has to say about me. You are uniquely able to take on future-oriented challenges. You lead the way to visionary possibilities and create what others said couldn't be done. You'll say yes before you even know the end of the question, which is absolutely true about me, and then turn it into a productive adventure. And I would say it's not even productive, like an adventure with me is magical. I am the true magician, and people tell me that all the time. So if you're on a journey with me, you're on a journey like no other. My archetypes, I am, based on the assessment that Josh and Emily suggested that I do, I am a magician, a creative, and a caregiver. Definitely, I'm a magician first. I'm also an artist. I think like I paint. So when I'm talking about how to create, it's really coming from that my own personal creation ability and how to do that. And I will often get people to paint, to draw, to stand up and dance, to get out of their head and really think about, then listen to what's in their heart. So it's a very heart-centered kind of approach. I take a very personal interest in my clients and their lives and their worlds and their families and their communities. And I am right there next to them. So I am definitely a caregiver. My personality style, if you're familiar with those 4 typologies, I'm a supportive promoter. I can sell anything, and I can sell anybody on anything, and I can sell you on being able to do anything, because I believe 100% is possible 100% of the time. You are the magician of your life, and you create your story, and we can create any story you dream up. As a guide, I make the invisible visible. So I look for connections among things that nobody would look for. And I ask, why can't these things be connected? So when somebody says, why not? I say, why not? Why can't we? I ignite ideas. I connect conversations. I am the ultimate connector. So, the Maven connector and salesperson, I've been all 3 of those, depending upon the depth of knowledge that I have in the field that I'm working with, with the innovator I'm working with. But I will take the time to immerse myself in that field, to understand it well enough to converse with my client in a meaningful way. I alchemize and integrate possibility, and I catalyze collaborative action. So I'm not just a coach for catalysts, I am a catalyst. I work with some of my clients, I work directly on the projects with them and make them possible. Okay, so according to, sorry, the sun is really not favoring me right now. According to Kay Putnam, the magician's goals are to make dreams come true, to leverage the laws of the universe. And that is indeed what I do with my clients. And the strategy is to develop a vision and live by it. And so I hold them to it. I don't let them forget it. I have some clients that I email, not just, send out like a scripted email, but I send personal emails to about their vision on a daily basis. How is it going? What are you doing? How's that conversation going? How did it work out? Did you, get to do the thing that you wanted to do? So I often do that with them. Help other people transform their lives. As I said, the transformation on the outside begins with the transformation on the inside. And so often my clients transform their own lives, their own thinking, their mindsets, the way that they do their work as a result of working with me. And then according to Kay, my other supportive archetypes is that I'm a creator, I'm inventive, unique, and vibrant. I have often times in my life been told I'm too much. I take that as a compliment. And I definitely, am about inspiring creativity and really helping people rediscover their imagination, which we seem to have lost en masse, and, create the container first for imagination before work. So beginning with being, how are we being? It's very difficult to innovate if you are not in a space of hope or a space of dreaming. If you're in a space of, I've got to get an outcome for a funder, for example, then it's very difficult. You're in a place of maintaining, not a place of dreaming, building. Help people realize their unique vision. I believe everybody has one. I believe everybody has a purpose in this life, and you just may not have discovered it yet. But you may discover it along the way. And usually people suddenly, you know, it's like they become hungry to figure out what their dream is for themselves. As a caregiver, I'm empathetic, generous, and committed. Yes, all true. I put people first. I believe in giving back. I believe in sacred reciprocity. I want to make sure that I create containers that are safe for people. I am very attuned to what causes trauma and what contributes to trauma, and really want to build a space where people feel like their voice matters, their opinion matters, they're part of something, and they have something unique to bring to the conversation, whatever that conversation is. So I'm striving to create inclusive containers, and containers where people can express differences of opinion. So it's not about silencing yourself because you're afraid, you know, the others won't agree with you. As I said, as a guide, these are the kinds of things that I do. One of the things I did this year was to create a summit that was a collection of interviews with innovators in the regenerative agriculture space in the Midwest, because I felt like they were not getting attention from the larger community, and that it was important to do so. And then the pandemic hit, and so I have this lovely collection of interviews that I've released in a kind of an email format, but that's content that I can do something with. I have right now 10 more interviews in the can that I could, you know, sort of again launch. And one of the things that I had envisioned in this website was it would be a repository of catalyst stories. So how do people go about catalyzing anything? How do they think and dream up something new? And then what's their experience like? And just listening to other people and their stories can be inspiring. It can also give you a lot of insight. It can spark new ideas. So that's something that I've considered doing. And right now I have a kind of a shell website where I've got sort of placeholders for these things. And that's one of the things that I have considered putting on it and sharing. But I did learn it is a heck of a lot of work to do these interviews, to edit them, and I did everything myself. So from building the website to doing all the interviews to doing all the emails, summarizing the interviews. I even edited the interviews. So I've done it all at this point. It was a heavy lift, and I'm not sure I want to continue doing that because it eats into time I could be spending with the clients themselves. So who are my clients? Here are some of my current sheroes and heroes. I work with a group of community-based organizations across the state of Illinois that are envisioning what it could look like to have a clean energy future in their neighborhood, in their community. Everything from solarized homes to community solar, where groups of neighbors are sharing in a solar project, to clean energy job pathways, where people can really be lifted out of poverty and be part of a new energy economy, to healthier air, cleaner air in communities where there are large warehouse districts that move goods around all day long with diesel trucks, and that's really impacting the air in the community. So this is a collective vision that's being lived out in a bunch of different communities, and I'm there to support those dreamers. In another client, I'm working with a new nonprofit that is led by a woman who is a red and worked with a whole setting and is a nutritionist. She is a chef, trained chef, and a food systems sort of visionary. And I'm helping her figure out how to build connections within the research community, and then advance the connection between soil health in a regenerative system and human health and nutrition. We all know intuitively that, there's a direct connection, but we don't have the research yet that really connects all the dots together. So we're trying to build a research agenda with partners that would help to really clarify all of that, and then educate and have pilot projects that really, build the connection within the food system. My local soil and water conservation district innovated a tool because as a bunch of farmers, they wanted to show that they were doing something about the water quality issues in our district and in the Midwest that are causing, contributing to the dead zone in the Gulf. And so they came up with this idea, and I helped them, along with the soil scientists, design a tool for field level assessment of the kinds of practices that are being applied in that field. It is now grown to 72 counties in Illinois. The state of Illinois Department of Agriculture has adopted it. It's now available for adoption by other states. 3 states have adopted it, and we're working with a 4th state. The National Association of Conservation Districts approved it as a program that could be a tool that could be applied in any conservation district across the country. So we're now working to scale that up. I'm on the steering committee. I just finished writing a big grant that will now fund a full-time employee to manage the program with us, and will help us now build this into a national scalable program. So that when I say I actually get in and do the work, that's what I mean by that. I also lead the verification committee and helped write the verification policy for that tool. I work with, right now, a National Association of Community Mediation Centers. There are centers across the country that were formed after the 1964 Civil Rights Act that put in place mediators that can work with communities to resolve differences, to be a container for safe conversations. And those centers are needed now more than ever. So we are piloting a program with 11 different centers across the country in small towns and big cities, building capacity to hold conversations throughout this fall as the election ensues, and really try to support people who are in conflict with one another ideologically. So just wrote a grant, submitted a proposal today to expand that to subsequent cohorts. So I see that rolling out. That would probably get funded, and I see that rolling out over the course of the next 3 years to mediation centers all over the country. And then I'm also working with a Midwestern state system that's trying to build a regional coordination system that they've never had, that can better link the state that funds local activities and communities with the communities themselves, so that the communities actually feel heard by this system. So that's just those are the things I'm doing right now. It's examples of the kinds of work that I do. It's all systems level work, but it's at different scales. And for, as the reason why I really like the pyramid is, all of these folks are innovators, and they're all social entrepreneurs themselves. And so I'm supporting them. They're at different levels of the pyramid. Most are at the bottom or at the second level. The Soil and Water Conservation District is probably the furthest along in terms of where it would be on the pyramid. But I'm, as a guide, I'm helping them move up that pyramid and figure out what that looks like for them. So that is my presentation. So my MOKR itself, my lagging indicator, and I should mention I'm also an evaluator. My lagging indicator is that I will publish this beautiful website, and I will have, a good sense of who the clients are that I really want to work with the most. And my leading indicators are all around hours invested in this, both in terms of really clarifying and presenting who I am, articulating that well, and talking to my current clients. And I thought about perhaps surveying some GRC members who might be willing to give me some insight. And even, so many conversations that I've been a part of since joining the GRC in May have given me a lot of insight and clarity about the level at which I kind of want to work. And then, really investing time in the design of the website and what that looks like, and the branding and logo and things that would go with it. That's it.
Awesome. So just for a little bit of clarity on the lead metrics, I think ours are always a really good lead metric. One lead metric that might also add to this, because it is a project of getting a website that is doing a specific thing, in your lag metric, making sure that you identify what it is specifically that this website is doing, right? But and then having that be the very end of like that, this is it. But because it's a project and there's steps to that project, the lead metric can also be breaking that entirety of it down into things
into steps. Yeah.
Into steps that you have control over. Ooh, that's a huge fly that just flew into my screen here. Sorry.
It's probably seeing the one that's flying around my screen. They're like trying to find each other.
But that might be another good lead metric for you to add into there, so you can actually see progress along your way. But I love what you're trying to accomplish, and I want to also ask a clarifying question of, I almost didn't understand the need, the want, the struggle, or the challenge that you're having, that this going after and tackling this wildly important goal satisfies for you right now. Because you did mention that you had enough clients right now, and a lot of times that's just all we need, right? And if we're the solopreneur that that's what we want to do, or we're the independent contractor, a lot of times we don't even need a website. A lot of times we don't need the outward facing things. People can get that from our conversation and so forth. So I'm just curious, because I know there's something there. I'm just curious what your challenges are, or what your wants are in regards to accomplishing this goal.
So I guess part of my challenge is that I think that I would like to shift the way that I work and maybe it's just to incorporate, not to completely shift, but to incorporate some additional services, let's call them, that would build community among the catalysts that I work with. So right now, these catalysts are all separate from one another. They know I work with the others. They know about it because I talk about it, right? I learn what I learn from one and I share it with another, but they're not connected together. And the other thing that I recognize is that catalysts, me included, benefit from being in community with others, just like we are, right? They learn from one another more quickly. It sparks new ideas. They gain access to new resources. I mean, there's all kinds of benefits to being in community together. Some of the clients I have created community among, and they're on a journey together because I've connected them intentionally, but not everybody. And so I've considered actually creating a cohort of social catalysts that would be on a learning journey together. And they might, at one point I had envisioned us actually traveling, going places and seeing, new ideas in action. But we could do that by Zoom, for example, the kinds of things that GRC does too, bringing innovators or thought leaders or, examples of what other places are doing, so that they can get a taste of those and what they look like, just exposure alone. I've thought about doing mastermind groups like this. I've thought about, telling their stories to others. I've thought about helping them bridge and build community through collaborative labs. Bringing a team together and saying, what could we create together in our community? So community-based kind of labs. So I have these other tools, let's call them, ways of building community that I'm thinking about adding to to the consultation work that I do, and inviting, certain catalysts into that community, and being the sort of leader or support for that. So that would be the place that I'm beginning to explore, and I'm thinking I would do that, say, in a next MOKR. But I want to get the base of who I am clear before I start adding other services to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So it is for you right now, it's an exploratory of like what it is that I'm actually creating, who I'm creating that for, and how I'm providing that to others, getting that conceptualized. Is that and being able to voice that through a website, through language, and those types of things. That's what this website is doing for you. Is that correct in saying that? Okay.
Brand identity and market research.
Brand identity and market research. It sounds like that, but go ahead, Ray.
So for me, one of the questions I like to ask is that if I had an old-fashioned Rolodex with lots of business cards and people in contacts, who would you want me to pull out to speak to? Because after hearing that, there was a lot of like big words and general words of like impact and social change and systemizing and things like that. But I still am a little bit confused of like who your ideal client is, or who is someone who I would need to stop on and say, you need to speak to this person. So who would that be for you?
So that's a really good question. Right now, my current ideal client is an innovator working at some system scale that has an idea, and somebody tells them, you should go talk to Carol Hayes about that. So I'm that person in your Rolodex that people send people to. That's me. What I want to be able to do is work with forward-thinking people, especially in small towns and rural areas, that recognize that their community needs to do something different. And it could be around a whole bunch of different things. There's so many different pathways that they could come to this from, but they want to be the spark in their community to do that. And I want to identify those people and be a connector for them, support for them, so that they have a place to go to help figure that out, what it looks like.
So here's a thought. Have you heard of the Sun Valley Institute?
It sounds familiar, but no, I'm not familiar directly with them.
So I think I can't remember the gal that started it, but she came in and gave a talk in a conference that I was at, and then I reached out to her and we did a little bit of branding work with her. But it was really, really cool to hear their backstory, and it sounds almost like where you're currently at is what she was searching for a little while, of building in Sun Valley, Idaho. Their community had some really strong issues, right? With they had everything shipped in, everything was so totally dependent. Their energy system was really messed up, and they had a lot of different crises, and the community understood that, right? And so she started talking to this person, started talking to that person. They gathered the people within the community together, and they started working through these issues. And then they started bringing in people from outside to do that. And what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you want to be that person that's kind of bringing the people in to solve some of these community problems. Is that right? And right now, so it's a shift from where you're currently at, of like, someone has a problem with their current systems, and I know this gal that has done this with this one gal, and I could refer you to them. And that's kind of where you're at. You kind of just kind of pick you don't get to pick who you want to work with at this point. You you get a referral and you just act on that project, which it seems like you've been able to fandango a social impact projects, right? And that's great. And you've created that for yourself. But you really want to be doing this specific work. And so it's that shift to be able to do that. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. That gives me more clarity. Does that help you too, Ray?
A little bit. I just want to be mindful that you use very general words, like it just, like when you first said when you first answered my question, and this is not, I think I would struggle with this as well, but it's like anyone who innovates and forward thinks in a system, like, I don't know, like that's a lot of people. Like, someone in a fast food restaurant knows how to systemize, and maybe they want to innovate a new process of doing something faster. Like, I think it just needs to be a little bit more specific, because like, I still don't know which business card or contact to send your way. And so it's like, and then you went on into saying like people who are forward thinking, wanting to build community. And then my mind went to like, okay, like town planners, are they like change makers? Are they like people in HR? I don't know. Like, I still think we can get tighter on the who you help. And then maybe to get better on that, it's like, what problem are you solving? Like, what are they normally stuck with that they come and you get them unstuck with? And then knowing the problem that's solved, we can find more people in a particular area that has that same problem, I guess, from my point of view.
Okay. And I guess my response would be, often in communities, there'll be some immediate problem that presents itself, but when you trace down to the roots of the problem, it's often very interconnected problems. So you might start with the problem of food sourcing, for example, or food security, or we want to have more local food, whatever the issue is. Yet when you really dig down into the problem, you find, a series of problems that are interconnected with one another. And the downstream outcomes can be mental health problems. It's, physical health problems. It's, you sort of have this cascade of problems that result from some root. So what I try to do is get people to work back into the root of the problem and really think about, if we made changes in this way, what could the benefits be? And often there are multiple benefits.
So Carol, I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
No, but I struggle as well with the same question, like what Ray just mentioned. Like, to me, I was also unclear about my target group, and I don't want to be too niche about it at the same time. So I have this like psychological barrier in defining who I want to help. And I would use the same words that Carol used, people who want to make change, people who want to build communities, people who, want to create impact. Because I'm worried that if I don't use those words, I'm becoming too niche, in my work, because I do design and, research and all of that. It's actually quite wide. I can apply it in many different fields, and, I can try solving many problems with that. It's quite a generic tool. And so I struggle with that too. Like, I don't know the answer.
So one thing to chime in about that, for Yanni and Carol, I feel like it doesn't always have to be a one-way road where you decide your niche and then you do market research. Because at least in the way that we've done market research, when you are like interviewing this list of people you've worked with, people you would like to work with, right? They will, like, people that you talk to will have certain similarities, and you'll be able to kind of bucket them. Like, oh, these are all the people in this type of organization, and these are all here. And so you can end up with these buckets. And once you can see them kind of categorized, you can either say, well, I really want to work with these three buckets because they're pretty close. And so my messaging could be almost the same, or I want to work with all of them, so I need my messaging to hit each of them. You know what I mean? Sometimes it seems like this really broad and overwhelming mass, like, I don't know, I kind of want to work with everyone, but I don't really, But once you do some of that market research, that will help kind of formalize it so you can make more of an educated decision once it's a little bit more organized in front of you. Does that make sense?
Can you give an example using Seeds of Tao, for example?
Okay, sure. So Seeds of Tao. Okay, Josh, feel free to chime in because it's been a while since we've done our market research. So when we did our survey, we were looking at not only permies, but we were looking at people in the sustainability world. Wow, all of a sudden huge, right? Huge. We got green tech. We got farmers trying to do more. We got, the type of permipreneur, like so many different people. How do you talk to all of them? And so the types of groups that we found, let me look on my website, I know we had it on there. We kind of, our 3 big buckets that we found that we wanted to talk to, because it wasn't everyone, would our content be valuable for all of those people? Yeah, but we can't focus on talking to all of them because if we do that, we talk to no one. We resonate with no one. And so like our 3 buckets essentially that we decided to focus on was partly because of our background in branding and marketing and entrepreneurship, was that permipreneur, right? Like these masterminds are great for the permipreneur, people trying to move that stuff forward in a business sense as the entrepreneur. And then also the practicing permi, the people who are really trying to embody that, not only in their land, but in their life. That was a big one for us. And then also we were really interested in talking to kind of the prospective permi, the person who doesn't know completely, they're like the investigating permi, who's not quite there yet. We wanted to be a resource for them. So therefore, our language needed to be not only accessible by the people who are practicing, but also the people who are investigating, which means in our language, we have to use more appropriate, more approachable words. We're not just throwing out permaculture terminology, or if we are, we're backing that up. So if you are just coming into this sphere, you can understand what's going on, and yet the content is still beneficial if you're a seasoned permaculture person, right? But that also means, because we're dealing with business owners, that we want to talk to not only as this self-development, but also developing your business, which the permipreneur, we're like starting in to really talk to that niche, because we've been spending most of our time and most of our content, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but this is how I'm seeing what we're doing, most of our time in our content talking to the person trying to take permaculture and apply it to their mindset. That's our whole Pando course and everything, right? It's starting with the self, and even the permipreneur has to do that. So that's kind of like our phase 1 interaction with these people. It's helping to put permaculture in here, project manage yourself, overcome your own personal boundaries, negative dialogue, all of that, get that in order. And then phase 2 is, once you've got yourself down, let's talk about your business or your dreams that you want to turn into a business. Does that make sense? I feel like that was really convoluted. But only through, we couldn't bucket them until we started looking at who we were actually talking to, because then you can group them in a number of different ways. You can group them by their situation, and this is coming from Ask Method. I know we drop that like every single Thursday. You can group people by their situation, right? The permipreneur, the practicing permi, the prospective permi. You can group them by their challenge. Okay, it's people who want systems in this sphere, or it's people who are forward thinking and getting stuck, or whatever, right? You can group them by their challenges, and therefore you can say, well, I want to talk to people with this challenge, and so my language is going to be focused on solving this challenge that I have already asked them. I know their language, and now I'm spinning that around to show them that I'm their guide for this challenge that they're that they're facing. And what was the third? I can't remember. Situation, challenge, wasn't like life stage or something?
Let me mute you for a sec. I'm forgetting the third. A life cycle. That's what it is.
Life cycle, yeah.
So where they're at in the life cycle of the the journey that you're taking them through.
Mhm.
So what those three right there are really interesting, but you can't understand how you're going to bucket your people until you start recognizing the patterns
Mhm.
that your people are standing in. And really, even before that, you got to understand the transformation or transformations that you can or are or will create, right? And so, Yanni, as you're doing your stuff, Carol, as you're creating yours, it really is to find your transformation first, what you hope for them, or what you currently are, Carol, because you've been doing this for quite some time. What are the transformations that you're creating? And then once you understand that, and then you do the market research to understand the different buckets that they might fit into, then you can see, well, these are, I'm starting to realize that there's challenges that they're being bucketed into. And I'm starting to realize that my offering, my transformation actually has a few different transformations, right? If this person has this challenge, I'm transforming them this way. If this person has this challenge, I'm transforming them this way. And you almost have to create separate messages and separate journeys, because if we talked about that life cycle or the hero's journey, they're going to go through a slightly different or even almost very different, which can be really, really hard for you, Carol, because it seems like you have a lot of different things that you've done. So there's a lot of different transformations that you can provide, right? What is it that you can, what is it that you really get excited about? And I think you're sharing that, this community rural development area, right?
And,
Sorry.
And empowering them to create was like empowering them to be able to create what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Was part of it.
And so that right there might be where you go. I kind of sense that might be it, but it might not be. It might be that you have a very clear transformation that you want to create for a very specific person. And so you might see and bucket people by the life cycle of what they are. Some people might be, and I do this, and you might have a hybrid of one or two or three of those. And I would say one or two. We are a hybrid of the like type, situation, and placement of where they're at, right? So when you look at what we're trying to create, it's not fully realized yet. And what Emily was kind of saying was mostly true, right? Not coming from the visionary, but we're trying to create for the permipreneur, for the person that's just getting into the permaculture and trying to discover what their role is in it, and then what it is for the person that's actually practicing permaculture and maybe just needs to understand more fully how they can make it into something that's more sustainable, more regenerative for themselves in a business sense, right? And so there's life cycle stages, and that's kind of how we've bucketed. And I showed you those life cycle stages in the beginning of this call when I showed you the personal legend pyramid, right? Those are my life cycle stages. That's how I grouped them. That's what I found in my market research, that people are at these certain stages. And I've actually seen that. And I should also say that I'm getting that from who does the 90-day year, because he also helped me to formalize the stages as well. Do you know who 90-day year is, Ray? Okay. Oh, no. Man, why am I forgetting his name?
Tim Ferriss, who's like 4-hour work week.
No, it's not Tim Ferriss. He used to be a sports, he used to coach. He was a personal coach for
Todd Herman.
Todd Herman, that's right. Yep. But Todd Herman also divided his out in that same way, and that actually comes from my branding business. I use that same market research data that I had from business owners, and I applied it into this, right? So that's just, I hope that gives you an idea of how you might be able to find your people, right? And target them in a way that allows you to share the transformation that you give to them.
Okay.
And Carol, I think you also have a lot of work, a lot of clients already, or think you've been doing this business for so long. I think just asking people, what was just send a one-liner email, like a 90-second email, I think they call it. It takes no longer than 90 seconds for someone to read and reply. It's like, hey, I'm just curious. We've been working together for X time. What's the biggest problem I've solved for you? And let them tell you what the problem is. Because I think sometimes we are too close to the product, we're too close to home, and we can't see we can't see we can't see it clearly. And when I've done this exercise in the past, you know, when I did my podcasting course, like I thought, you know, getting people to launch their podcast is what they wanted to do. And the problem I was actually solving is letting people tell their story. And so it, you know, launching a podcast had nothing to do with it. In fact, most people wanted to launch a podcast who'd been thinking to write a book. So the marketing message could be, if you've wanted to write a book and that's not your forte, maybe a podcast is the way that you share your story. And so like it changed the dialogue a lot. So asking your customers who you've been working with for a very long time, what problem you solved for them might give you a whole list of aha moments that none of us can see yet, because you can't articulate it yet because you don't see it yourself. So it's hard for us to comment as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's really good advice, Ray.
Hey, so I have a question. Yeah, see, I just tried to go off on the visionary bit, and I'm totally not the visionary in our business. But coming from my strength as the integrator, I'm curious, what is your strategy in terms of, because you're talking a lot about brand identity, and so is your plan to just kind of go through it DIY? Are you going to try to go through branding agency? Like, because I feel like it can be a big conceptual thing, so it's hard to like check off where you are in that process. So what's kind of your plan to attack your branding angle?
Really good question, Emily. So I was sort of thinking that this chick named Emily and this guy named Josh could help me, since they're really good at it, and could, like, I don't know if Pando Academy is what I need, or, you know.
We can talk about it later. I think
Yep.
it's out. I mean, I don't want to be overly salesy or overly providing a service, or I want to explore to see if that is a good fit as
Okay,
well.
we can do that. So I
but I
don't
think
have an
that-
answer for you, Emily, yet. That's my
Okay.
answer.
I will just
because
do you have a Pinterest account, Carol?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put in the chat, because I had put together these big, just kind of inspiration boards based on the archetypes. So I'm just going to throw the 3 boards that I have in the chat, so you can just look, because it's just kind of fun to look and kind of see it put up.
Okay.
Just so you can.
And that's the kind of stuff that, I mean, that's what, if I were doing it myself, that's what I would do. And, you know, but if you have other recommendations for like frameworks or approaches to use, I'm also very open to that. So.
Yeah, and just I'll give you just a little bit of like what I would suggest if you wanted to work together on something. We do have it's basically what I did as a branding agency. We do a 2 to 3 day intensive, and that could be something that we could hash out all of this language, help you to start your market research, and to an extent to that, we could go in and help you to do the market research, or I could help to frame it for you so you can go and do it yourself. And that could be something that you can definitely do. But we can talk about that individually. I'll reach out to you, and we can set up a time to explore that more.
Great, thanks.
I'm liking where we're finding some of these different challenges. I really enjoyed Ray bringing up just you being very vague in your conversation, because I also saw that Yanni had a hard time with that. And then to bring that conversation back and see that we all are, and hopefully you're recognizing this as well, you know, anybody's project can actually help you on your own. And I'm hoping we're recognizing that as we're moving through this. Just wanted to mention that comment.
Yeah, because like I was thinking about just transformations I'm offering as well as the people that I want to work with. And coming back again to, you know, our discussion 2 weeks ago about knowing your people first, you know, how Apple like understands their people before they even sell the products. And so like, I got really stuck. I was like, oh shit, like I really don't know my people well. And I'm now trying to push my product, which is in my head, it's my transformation, like the transformation I'm offering to them. So I felt anxious about it because I felt like I'm doing this wrong.
Oh, we're all doing it wrong to some
Yeah,
degree, and
I was
we're
just
figuring
say
it
the
out.
same thing. Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all winning this thing called life.
I was gonna say the way that like when I send out newsletters, I like transferred my entire email list from my clothing company to Refarmers, but there's like 600 people on there, and I get happy when people unsubscribe because I'm weeding out the people who don't actually care, and I'm like doing the reverse of knowing my audience because I'm like, I'll just keep sending it to those people, and every time I get 10 unsubscribed, I'm like, good. It's like more like zoning into the people who want it, but I don't know if that's like totally not the right way to do it, but it's
No,
easy.
it is a
Nailing
good
it.
thing to do.
You could like get
In
a
fact,
whole
I do
bunch of
that
people.
on any launch, and I forget where I learned this actually, but in a couple of the launch formulas that I've seen, you when you launch, you send it to everybody, friends, family, schools,
Okay.
you know, people that's you knew from high school, you know, just
Exactly.
weird random things, because you never know who is going to be interested. And I've noticed that, like, it's so interesting to see, like, this guy that I met in this weird random area that I would have never thought of my life that you would be interested in this, all of a sudden comes back to me and says, dude, I really want to do what you're doing right now. And you're like, what the heck? You know, I never would have thought that. And so it's really funny that I've actually been able to do that, but it's also very vulnerable to do something like that. Right. Because you're going to get a lot of bit of, and I've gotten this too, is like, why the heck did you put me on this list? You know, and that's okay. Cause you're weeding them out. And as long as you don't take it personal, you get to the people that you want to.
Yeah, I guess not kosher to have people on the list they didn't subscribe to, but everybody does it.
I would do it on that initial list. I wouldn't do it. This is here another thing. I probably wouldn't have done it on my MailChimp, or I would have set up another MailChimp and then send out that initial one. And then just so the unsubscribes and the this is spam doesn't actually,
They cut you off or something after if you do it too much or something.
It's so kind of like a quality score. Yeah, the algorithm can drop your quality score. Yeah.
And they will boot you if you get too many people marking you as spam, because their MailChimp actually has their own, and a lot of these email marketing platforms have their own score that they're managing, like through Google, through everybody else and all the other providers. And so they need to keep that at a high level. And if that score drops for them, they boot you, right? They don't want to ruin their own score.
That's true.
So
I don't think
Yanni
I've ever met someone that had that happen though.
Yanni had a good point, or a good idea here that I just want to lift up about, building, sort of creating community in a different place other than just relying on a website. I mean, a website in some ways kind of becomes your calling card. That's at least the way I view it these days. Unless you've got other resources on it that people take advantage of and they go to it all the time, right? But I think her point is that maybe instead of trying to pour a lot of energy into a website, building a community somewhere else. And I'm part of a whole bunch of different communities and a whole bunch of different spaces, everything from Facebook groups to Slack is, I think, the most recent sort of way of building community and even doing the activity in Slack, right? I mean, I'm taking a course that's all on Slack. And so it doesn't have to have this fancy platform, if you're trying to stay connected to a community or build a community. So I think that's a really interesting point. And Josh and Emily, I wonder, what is and Ray, what are your thoughts about that?
Keep it
Anybody
lean,
have some
lean,
thoughts before I?
lean. Yeah, keep it lean, lean, lean. So my method to this madness is to not build the runway before you even have a plane to take off. And so it's okay to build that runway as the plane is taking off. And so, like, even when you said that you haven't had a website for so long, I also question why now. And so having a very, solve the problem in other ways, use Facebook groups, use other tools that already solve a lot of the heavy lifting for you, validate that that's kind of what the community wants, that's what your customers want, and don't be distracted by shiny objects. Just because Slack is trending right now doesn't mean it's the best platform. In fact, I hate Slack. And Farming Secrets did a massive mistake by moving their community to Slack because some business guru was saying, I built my community on Slack. And it works good from the business point of view and people who are in tech startup. For farmers who can't even get on a Zoom call, why the hell would you move them onto Slack?
Exactly.
So it's know your audience, get them to pick where the platform is, and even give the illusion of picking if you have to. Like, let people have the illusion of, would you prefer the coaching call on Thursdays or Fridays? Let them vote and then go, you know what, Thursdays works better for me. We're going to do it Thursday. Not to be facetious, but like follow through if you can. But if you can't deliver, one thing you've got to learn is you can't please everyone. You're always going to piss someone off, and to them you say, bugger off. I don't want you in my ecosystem. And it's very, very important to set those boundaries and say no. We have someone, I won't name him, in the community, and he just pisses me off. And so my last email to him was like, great to know you, but we just don't gel. Please do not contact me again. Like, if you want to talk to Helen and Hugo, that's fine. They can tolerate you. I can't, because he was getting me to the point where I was at breaking point. Like, I just wanted to throw everything in and say, this isn't for me. And so I know that he triggers me. And so I had to set boundaries. So knowing that you can't please everyone and you will piss people off, and they will filter out themselves, and just start very lean. Like, let the community build what they want. And so every coaching call that I have with the Farming Secrets community, I ask them, even yesterday's session, I said, do you want 3-day reminders, 2-day reminders, or 24-hour reminders? And they all pick 24-hour reminders. So, and a 1-hour reminder. So like, I let them design. Like, if I'm sitting here going, I don't know when to do the reminders, I stopped thinking about it, asked the community, they solved the question. Josh and Emily did the same thing with the Panda group. They couldn't decide on the pyramid colors. So they asked Yanni and I as members, like, which colors do you want? And then we solved the problem. So you can spend 3 hours trying to solve the problem yourself and arguing, getting heated and this and that. When the solution is, by the people, something our governments have failed of late.
That's great. And I just to add to that, it really is knowing your transformation and who you want to create it for first, before you allow your the market to determine what your offering is and what everything is. They basically, and there is that type of business, but it's not a social. It's not a social entrepreneur business. It's a business that will find the trends in the markets and provide a service because they know it's going to make money for them. And we're going for something that's very heartfelt. Apple is a perfect example of something that is a passion-led business or purpose-driven business in the way that they did branding. But if you look at Windows was the opposite of that. Windows was like, heck, I know what people need. This is the market. Personal computing is going to be the next big thing. And you look at the difference between it doesn't mean one was wrong and one was right. But if you are a purpose-driven business and entrepreneur, you're going to have a hard time letting the market dictate what the transformation that you're trying to create, right? And that's just a thought. But a resource that, as far as getting your website up, I think clarity of what you want and who you want to work with and those types of things is going to be super great for what you're doing. But some of the platforms that I've been excited, maybe even dive into myself. Where did this go? Just to explore, I've actually looked at this Mighty Networks. Have you heard of Mighty Networks?
I have heard of that, but I haven't, like, I was afraid it was another sort of flash in the pan sort of thing, so I didn't go explore it. But I know
a couple of people that are actually doing well on it, and so I'm still doing my research. I hope you do your own due diligence, but that was something that came up in my search. And it might even replace Slack for us in the future. I'm not sure.
And in this space, I think it makes a lot of sense because a lot of people in the permy place don't want to be silenced or censored or controlled by Facebook. So again, know your audience. Farming Secrets has also explored that.
And that's why we chose Slack over Facebook. Yeah. But yeah.
Hate it.
But also Mighty Networks might be something that they see it as this is its own platform, right?
Have you guys heard of Nation Builder? Had experience with that? Nation Builder?
I've heard someone talk about it. I haven't looked into it yet at all.
My activist friends wants me to just do a simple website for her. She's older and doesn't know anything about it, but I'm just looking now and it has a section for networks. It's like for big email lists, like it's a lot for nonprofit advocacy, but it has enterprise and networks on here. I don't know, that could be that you pay it like a monthly thing. But I was going to say about building a website too. In the first year, like even me, I had everything ready, all the photos and the write-ups and blah, blah, blah. And even within months, COVID happened, and my mission and vision and even the projects I'm doing are totally different. So all the work that I did, I'm like changing these write-ups and I'm changing the date. And I'm like, oh man, like I was ready to do a website though. So that's even crazier because people were waiting to sign up and whatever, like right away, like it got a lot of action. But so you have to remember in the first year and especially that you don't really know exactly, it's just, you'll end up spending a lot of time changing your content and all that. So.
Yeah, I have an option of, because I'm a partner with a larger organization and they've created like an alternative to Facebook, right? And it is for the regeneration community. Now they're in the Midwest, but that's kind of where I want to work. And I can use their platform for free, and it's got all kinds of functionality. It can support, like I could offer a course on it. I can do Zoom calls on anything I could do on Slack, on Facebook, and Zoom, I can do on that platform. And they're building a community. So I actually have a built-in community I could, I could message to if they're the right community. So this is something I'm, kind of playing around with. And I even informed the design of the whole thing. So I know exactly how it works and what it does. And I just haven't, I haven't taken that next step to actually do something there. So I've thought about just, trying it out and seeing, could I build community there? Could I bring people from like GRC and other communities that I'm involved with to that space because they want to build that space and they've got back-end support for free because I'm a partner. So,
Yeah, all great solutions, and I can't say that you choose one or the other, right? You got to really decide that on your own, unfortunately, right?
Well, maybe that's part of my MOKR. I'll like get to a point where I'll have
I'll tell you one thing though. At least just deciding and getting going on something is going to be your best bet, right? If you decide just to do the website and you commit to it, you're going to learn so much just by doing that. If you decide that you're going to set up just a community on Facebook or set up a community on Slack and work from there, just do it. And you're going to learn so many things on that path that you wouldn't have otherwise. So in my opinion, like it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to get it started. That's Ryan Levesque says that all the time, ask method. But I really strongly subscribe to that model a lot of times. I know Ray does a lot too. So
yeah, I second that as well. Because if your hurdle is I need a website, until you close that loop, and I'm very much like this as well, I become paralyzed. So throwing something up there and closing that loop to some level, you know, one of my biggest downfalls in the last 15, 20 years is every business idea I have, I think is an amazing idea, and I just have to buy the domain, build the website, and then never do anything with it. And so over the years, and lately I've been decluttering from a digital point of view, letting all those domains expire. And I see the renewals come up. I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. Like 10 years ago, I thought I could, you know, build a coffee app and stuff like that. And so it just, I get that whole, I've got an idea, I need to execute on it. So if you need to build a website, even kind of go, I'm happy with a one pager that's who am I, who do I serve, like these are my values, these are my missions, and it's a one-page website, and know that it's dynamic, you know, and what you build today won't, you know, like as MP shared, won't be the same in 5 years' time. That's good growth, and that's a good mindset to know this is okay for now. And as I evolve, the business gets clarity, I get clarity, I serve more students or customers, I get better testimonials. This is a evolving beast, and you then have a somewhere where you can park all those cool things that happen. But yeah, and if the community is a thing, like choose a platform, and the decision fatigue is a big thing. If you're constantly thinking mighty networks, this one, Facebook, Slack, just pick one, execute on it, throw some mud, see what sticks, and then evolve it later. And I just want to remind everyone, sometimes it's not about how, it's ask who. So ask other people in your network who set up a community successfully. What did they use? What would they do differently?
Also, I built
websites
on 4 or 5 different platforms now. I can't even tell you. And I get super frustrated because it's like,
I make her learn a platform, and hey, I found out this new platform. You should learn it. Oh,
yeah. 3 months later. Wait, this one is so much better. Build it on here, Emily. Oh my gosh. Anyways, even though we did that, and they were like completely different platforms, like hardly anything transferred over. Yet I still learned more each time I did it. So even now, like when we built our new website on Kajabi, like I was a better website builder because I learned all these crazy platforms before. So don't feel like when it comes to like website platforms, like, oh, I have to commit for my life, because it's not that big of a deal. It can be remade by you or by someone else. Like,
it's okay.
That's not what you were saying last when I thought about doing the last change of the website.
Yeah.
So
yeah, y'all are making me like not want to do the website things.
Don't get scared about it.
I mean, I've got one. I've got one that's built. I could just press publish now, and I just call it done.
You very well could, and that might be it. But and as we wrap up here, I want to hit on that point that we're kind of talking about right now. It is really just getting started, and I know there's these. Hopefully, you've noticed that those that have gone through their MOKRs already, things are already starting to change, right? As we're talking about this, Carol is like trying to think of like, maybe it isn't that, right? But as just commit to something, even the process of doing the MOKR will help you to get to that next stage, right? Because you have to go through these things to actually make sure that you're making it happen, right? And I'm talking to Ray and P now. So as you guys decide whether or not you want to sign up for it, because we don't have next week's planned. So if someone wants to schedule for that, great, go ahead and do it. And we would love to have you do it and just get started. I mentioned earlier to Ray, I didn't mention to you, MP, if it's just trying to formalize the MOKR that we're doing for that session, we can totally do that, right? Because it is a big thing to try and hash out those ideas. We're still doing it right now, kind of, with Carol, right? Because there might be some changes that she's thinking of. but we didn't get to that by not actually just going and getting it done. I want to end on that just because I think it feels good to end on that.
And we did mention that the kids screaming in the background are not ours. In case you're hearing that, that's upstairs. Our kids are quiet and not screaming.
I was like, are they crying? Or
I was totally judging that whole time.
I knew it, Ray. I knew it. I had to say something. I knew he was still judging me.
Not true.
You know what? I have so much fun on these. I just want to mention that. And I know I've gotten feedback from you guys, and thank you for the feedback, but this has been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying this. This is some of the funnest time that I have in the week. I look forward to these every week. I hope we can continue it with new and interesting ideas, as well as keep our strong core that we have here, because I enjoy the time that we spend together each week. So thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for
Lots
all
of
the
fun.
help and support and feedback and encouragement. I appreciate it.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes.
See you next week.
Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Okay.
Awesome.
And
Bye, everyone. Bye.
on the Slack channel, if you have any questions or want to add to the conversation.
Great.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.